Back in the days, if you wanted to make a budget gaming PC, you definitely wouldn't be restricted by choice. Until you got to the GPU. And unless you wanted to be playing on a glorified potato, your options for a long time would be the GTX 1650 Super or RX 580. But what if you didn't have those options? Well, that was actually me not too long ago. But yeah, after a while, my old GTX 750 Ti just couldn't handle the workloads and stuff. So I had to look for a new graphics card, and after searching for like 27 hours, I finally came across an RX 6500 XT and was kind of skeptical at first until I saw the price tag of £150. Yeah, I kind of just had to buy it at that point, and it even solidified my option when I looked at a bunch of benchmark stuff to find out it's actually really good. So I finally bought it, and now I'm going to be giving my full review on it. My PC case is so dark, there's no LEDs on. But yeah, I'm going to be doing a full review on this graphics card. There'll be timestamps in the description as always. And if you have any questions about this product, don't be afraid to ask in the comments. But without any further ado, let's get right into the video. First things first, let's go over the design really quick. So it's a dual fan design from MSI, and at the top you can see that it's made from their Mech series, and all it uses is a 6-pin for power. That's really good and quite power efficient. And at the back we have a plastic backplate, and there are 2 screws here that you can see to take it off if you want. At the bottom you got your normal PCIe. For I/O, all we have is a single HDMI port and a display port, which I guess is fine. If you're buying a GPU this cheap, you're probably not running more than 2 monitors. But if you are and you're still looking at the budget end, then you can still get this graphics card, but you might want to run something with a GT 710 as well in mind, just for another display output. But yeah, that's actually pretty much it for the design. It's very small and compact. It's like the size of my hand, and I don't really have big hands. So let's get on to the benchmarks, and first we need to put this in the PC because, well, how do I get it here? Yeah, let's do that. Alright, we are finally in the OS now after definitely not forgetting to put the power cables in that forced a restart. But anyways, I'm going to be using these settings to do our Heaven benchmark, and maybe you guys can actually do it with your own graphics card to see what score you get as a kind of comparison if you want. Alright, the benchmark is underway, and actually while this is running I might as well go through the specs of my computer. So I'm running a AMD Ryzen 5 3600 at 1.1 volts at 4.3 gigahertz, as well as 32 megahertz of 16 gigabytes of Corsair DDR4 RAM. All of this is on an ROG Strix B550F gaming Wi-Fi motherboard, and of course the RX 6500 XT. And to monitor our progress so far, we are going to be using MSI Afterburner right there in the top left hand corner. And so far it seems to be doing actually very well. There is no overclock on this graphics card at all. This is completely stock. 100% utilization at 72 watts, that's pretty decent. But 62 degrees, that's actually really good. And this is the fan percentage, so it's not even running at 50% fan speed. And not really that loud actually. Wait, let me just... This is what it sounds like. Yeah, it's not that loud at all, which is very good, but we need to wait for the score, so we're going to cut to that right now. So as we can see on high settings, we had an average FPS of 74.3 and our score was 1871. That actually seems pretty good, so I'm assuming that if you use generally high settings, you should be getting above 60 FPS, which seems very good. But that doesn't translate into That doesn't translate into real world performance. So we are going to be using a bunch of random games, starting with Rainbow Six Siege. Now, Siege actually has a built-in benchmark mode. By the way, I'm using the game version where this guy just came out. For graphics, I'm not joking, I literally looked up a video of all of what each setting did, just so I could find the best performance to quality gain thing. I recommend you actually do that, but this is kind of just the general settings that I use. And this, I would say, would give the best real-world interpretation of what you would get. I just realized that FPS is limited flip. Okay, as I was saying, this is probably the most real-world interpretation of how much FPS you would get in something like Rainbow Six Siege, for example. Because not everyone is going to be running on maxed out settings, and that is a very good starting point. 180 FPS so far. We're going to let it run through, so it gives us our average and general score. Okay, the test is done, and we had an average FPS of 195, so that is definitely well above exceptional level. and an average frame time of 4.8 milliseconds. If you don't know what frame time is, it's roughly how long it takes for each frame to load. And I'd say it's just as or even more important than FPS. So if you have really good frames, but your frame time is bad, then it's gonna look like a stuttery mess. So yeah, this is definitely very good, but let's move on to the next game. Forza Horizon 5. So I think for this benchmark, we're just going to put it on high. I did try to use Ultra and Extreme, but for some reason the driver just doesn't take it and it crashes. But I don't know, maybe that could be fixed. So we're just going to put it on the high preset and start benchmark. And we'll get back to you when the results are in. The results are in, and we achieved an average of 57 FPS, which actually isn't too bad. We had a stutter count of 4 times, so it didn't even stutter that much as well. And for a graphics card that costs like £150 and has 4GB of VRAM, I'd take that. That's actually very impressive. And my camera is actually about to die right now, so that's nice. There are other great things about this GPU as well. AMD software works really well with this graphics card. The software is very intuitive and there are many ways that you can customize your experience. It even allows you to overclock on it as well, which I actually did a video on if you want to check that out. The other great thing is that because it's so small, it can basically fit in any mid-tower case. So it seems that it's got it all. It's very cheap, it's powerful, and it's small so it can fit into any case. So I could just end the video right now and say go ahead and buy it if you're on a budget. But there are a few things that I have to mention that kind of stop people from recommending it. The first thing is that 4GB for some people just isn't enough. If you're playing AAA games, it might give you a bit too low of FPS. And even though it's a 1080p GPU, it may struggle on high FPS at 1440p and 4K. But the big main thing about this graphics card is that it doesn't have H.264 encoding. What that means is you basically can't record with OBS or stream on it. There are also certain encoders that software such as Adobe use that the RX 6500 XT just doesn't support. There are certain ways to avoid this though, such as using built-in software encoders or running it off the CPU, but this really stops people from recommending this graphics card because it's so gamer focused almost. Actually, on the subject of content creation, there is another issue with this. So this graphics card supports PCIe Gen 4, however it only uses by 4 lanes instead of the usual 16, so bandwidth is also limited. It's going to struggle sending and receiving data very efficiently. Think of it like a motorway. If there are many lanes, the data can flow freely and efficiently, but when it gets constricted, it doesn't work as well. But to a lot of you, that might not actually matter. Actually, I've said a lot of the information. Let's summarize it really quick. I'd say the best use case for getting the RX 6500 XT is that if you're a gamer, if you mostly play games and you do a bit of productivity here and there, like right now I'm just editing a video, then I'd say this is really good. You get really good performance, it's small, it's power efficient, it's really good. But if you're a person that does a lot of content creation, so for example you stream and record gameplay a lot, you might want to save a bit more money and go for something like a 1660 Ti or an RX 6600 XT. And on the subject of gaming, I actually forgot to mention one thing, because I am of course the best scripter in the world, and that is that this graphics card for £150 has ray tracing. For some reason, this £150 GPU, I keep mentioning it a lot because I'm just surprised by the price, but this graphics card with this limited bandwidth and no H.264 encoding has ray tracing. So as well as buying a graphics card, you also get bragging rights. But I'm not going to do too much on the ray tracing. That's probably a thing for another video because I have not messed around with it too much. Also, AMD, just like Nvidia, have their own software that helps improve it, and I'll probably go over that in another video. But actually, that summarizes this video, yeah. So that's the end of this video. If you like this video, make sure you like it, and if you like this video, then subscribe. Hopefully, we have a lot more content like this coming in the future. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Alright, bye.